He was riding him on his shoulders. Patrick Mahomes was on his shoulders. Somebody sent me that like immediately, when doing the game. They sent it to me, and so I sent it to everybody.
Should have been Tom Brady sitting on Devin White's shoulders.
Well, I mean,
he carried him.
Defense gets you there. That's how Tom Brady has done it his whole career, though. It works one way, that way. It's okay. It's okay that Tom Brady has a top 10 defense.
Hey, I'm done. I can't even. However he won, I've been fighting. I give up.
Give it to him, kid.
Dude won again. What can you say? He won again. There's nothing you can say. We can find holes, try to poke holes, look to discredit. However, he won again. He won. Listen to that, Jay. He won again. Again.
Key, he has 7. The Patriots have 6. The Steelers have 6. The Cowboys have 5. The 49ers have 5. Just say it. He's the best franchise in the NFL. Tom Brady's the best franchise in the NFL.
As I said before, he can go to Jacksonville Jaguars tomorrow and they might win the Super Bowl. And it may not even be his quarterback play. It's just whatever it is that he brings it. That last 30 seconds screaming and yelling in the huddle with 30 seconds to go in the game, whatever that was, they buy in, they win.
It's unbelievable. Think about what Jay said. Tom Brady has won more Super Bowls than any franchise in the history of the NFL. And obviously, remember, Brady's done this all in this millennium. The Steelers won 4 championships in the 70s. The Niners were the team of the 80s. The Cowboys in the 90s. Brady has done this, obviously, in the last 20 years plus. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Week 12, Chiefs jump out to a 17-0 lead over the Bucs, hang on for a 27-24 victory. Since that loss, the Bucs never lost. Head coach Bruce Arians on what they learned after that defeat that turned into W after W after W after W.
We watched that one pretty closely. I mean, we knew we screwed up in that first quarter. We weren't going to let Tyreek Hill get off this time, and Todd came up with a great game plan of keeping Kelsey and Tyreek Hill in front of us and let that front four get after him.
Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. So let's kind of go back to the Chiefs here. We haven't really touched here on the Chiefs, and deservedly so. Brady gets all the accolades. He deserves them, his 5th Super Bowl MVP. What did you make of the Chiefs? Obviously, they were compromised at a couple of very important positions on the field.
Yeah, offensive line, they struggled. They for whatever reason, Todd Bowles did a great job on Tyreek Hill, and they couldn't figure out how to shake him or Kelsey loose. But that is how you win, though. You keep everybody in front of you, and you rally to make the tackles, and so that was what the Bucs defense did. And then Patrick Mahomes was off a little bit. I mean, it was a jailbreak at times, which was ridiculous. He dropped back and hit his back foot, and the next thing you know, the rush was coming, whether it was blitzing, whether it was JPP, Sue up the middle. I mean, that thing looks different when you're sitting in that cockpit. So for him, he struggled. There's no question about it. But it wasn't all him. He needed some other guys to come to the party for him. The defense certainly didn't play as well as you would have thought that they would have played against the Buccaneers. And it's unfortunate that it turned out to be this way for a guy that a lot of people deemed as the next Michael Jordan of his sport. That's why I try to tell Jay when stuff like that come up. I'm like, Jay, man, Jay didn't say it. Let's be clear. But when you start to push the envelope on things like that, this guy is this. It's like, well, man, let's just let him get to 2 before we put him at 7. Let him get the 2 wins beforehand, because we've seen great quarterback play by many guys, and then it just disappears after that.
I just feel like this doesn't take away from Patrick Mahomes' greatness to me. It just, last night recognizing that, look, he was pressured more than any QB in Super Bowl history, 29 times. Brady was pressured fewest times in Super Bowl history at 4, right? So the O-line obviously decimated. Tyreek Hill wasn't doing backflips and giving a peace sign this time like he did the first matchup. Winfield Jr. let him know about that. And the defense couldn't really stop guys like Leonard Fournette and, Gronk and Tom Brady. It was like that was on repeat. That was like watching an oldie but goodie. I just feel, though, like at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is still a special talent that's deserving of $500 million.
Absolutely.
He still is. It just so many things worked against him. I got to give the credit to the Bucs for how they handled that game plan. Todd Bowles should have been the MVP with the way he had that defense ready to go.
And nothing's taken away from Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs. But when you start to talk about the great quarterbacks that have played this game, you talk about them after they win a couple championships. When they win one, we've seen it. It's Aaron Rodgers has never been back since his first one, and we keep waiting for that. Drew Brees is getting ready to retire and has not stepped back into a Super Bowl as a player. And then so when you start to look at the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, it's like, okay, we know he's good and we know they're young and they all sign and they good, but there's so many other things when you look at the quarterback play of other guys in the past that have gone to Super Bowls and have lost those Super Bowls, have yet to get back.
You don't think Patrick Mahomes gets back, Key?
I don't know that. To be honest with you, Jay, I don't know, because there's so much that has to happen. Andy Reid's dealing with personal issues with his family right now.
Yeah, that was
Eric Bieniemy may decide next year when his opportunity's up again, Zubin, to leave and go on. Other teams in the AFC are going to get better. The Jets didn't go out and get Robert Saleh for nothing. The Buffalo Bills, you think they don't think they got a shot? Or the Cleveland Browns? Or you don't think Pittsburgh is trying to figure out how to fix their quarterback situation? Deshaun Watson, where does he land? I mean, all of those sort of things. So when you start to put the chase down for Patrick Mahomes on catching Brady, it's like, we don't know.
The AFC is more emboldened than ever because Mahomes had never had a dud in his 3 years as a starter, but yesterday was proof positive on the worst possible stage that he had one. Last thing I would say, last three Bucs opponents, Saints, Packers, Chiefs. In the regular season, Brady went 1-2 against them. He got smoked by the Saints, but when it happened and mattered the most in the divisional round, got him. They beat the Packers, but they had to go to Lambeau and Aaron's best chance to maybe get there again. Smoked him. And the Chiefs, who they didn't get smoked by, they lost by 3, but they were outclassed, down 17-0 in the regular season game. When it counted the most, they were there again. That's the measure of the man. You can get me in the regular season, that's all fine and good. But when the chips are all at the center of the table, ask those 3 teams what happens when you face.
Zubin used the word smoke. I ain't heard that in years.
It's all the smoke.
England, stop the New England Tom Brady Belichick. Look, they did it. He was a great quarterback, so everybody else is supposed to do it. It does not work that way. This game is extremely hard, but when you talk about the losing team, Aaron Rodgers won. He hasn't been back. 3 MVPs, and he has yet to go back to the Super Bowl, right? Think about it. Tom Brady won in 04, 05, I think those are the years, to start with. It took him 10 years to win another Super Bowl.
Full decade.
Look, it's hard. No matter how much we like Patrick Mahomes and we love his talent and his skill set, and I get it. But sometimes it's just not meant to be, even if we want to force it. You know, he got 15 years to go. Do I honestly think he'll get back to the Super Bowl? Yes. How many times? I don't know. But at the same time, I do recognize that it's extremely hard, Jay. And I've seen this movie so many times. Seattle's still trying to get back after they gave the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots on the interception at the end of the game. They still trying to get back, right? I mean, that's what happens.
I just feel like, Key, after watching that game last night, watching the way that the Bucs dismantled the Chiefs, and I know that Patrick Mahomes could then go off and potentially, if he were to win 4 down the line in 15 years, but there's no way he can surpass Tom Brady, in my opinion. There's no way that can ever happen. This game will forever be cemented with these two. I feel as if Tom Brady.
You mean when you say surpass him, you talking about in the total of winnings or just in
like the greatest of all time conversation?
Oh, okay.
Like the greatest of all, and it goes back to, you know, we'll get into this throughout the show. You know, if you consider Tom Brady to be the greatest athlete in team sports history,
I love that you stressed athlete.
I'm giving Tom Brady all his flowers. I don't know if I'm going to give him that single one rose yet. I still think Jordan is that just because of the way he's been undefeated. But this picture of Tom Brady just having Patrick Mahomes on his shoulder. I'm telling you, that picture that you sent me last night, it's just forever ingrained in my mind right now. It felt like this was an older guy just saying, hey, let me show you how to do this, young fella, for the time being.
Here's what I would say. in basketball, it's a little bit different because in basketball, I recognize that Jay Will can only go to his right. So I'm going to push him to his left. We're going to close on the right and everything. We're going to force him to go left. What happened in that game last night is there's a blueprint out now. In that blueprint, regardless to what the offensive line looked like and how decimated the offensive line was, there's a blueprint that was put together by Todd Bowles. And that blueprint is we need to confuse and mix up coverages and twists and stunts and rotations. It's something called a cat blitz. Y'all probably don't know what that means. It means corner cat. The corners are coming off the edge. He brought a double cat, something that does not happen. That's video game football. That is Madden 21 football. Double cat blitz where he brought both corners off the edge. He did that to Patrick Mahomes last night. Patrick Mahomes threw an incompletion. A double cat blitz. Nobody dials that up, man. Nobody. If you can, we can have Mike Tannenbaum, we can ask him. Dan Orlovsky's coming on with us in about an hour. We can ask him, when was the last time he saw a double cat blitz coming out of the secondary? Dan's probably going to say never in his entire career has he seen that.
12 years he played.
In his 12 years. Because they don't do it. They bring one. They're not going to bring both. But Todd Bowles brought both, so therefore there's a blueprint out now that Copycat League is going to install during the offseason to say let's do this to the Kansas City Chiefs offense, let's do this, let's confuse. And those teams are going to try to get to the Super Bowl next year.
But Key, you don't think if this offensive line was healthy, if they didn't have certain players opt out at the beginning of the year, you don't think that would have given Patrick Mahomes a lot more time in the pocket? It seemed like it seems like he was taking 20 steps back in his drop multiple times. It just feels like they were coming at him 24/7. The line couldn't hold nothing.
It's all about what Todd Bowles did, to be honest with you. It's not about the offensive line. I mean, that we could talk about the offensive line, and we could use that as
look
a little bit of an excuse.
Here. Look at the pressures, 29 pressures. He barely had time to breathe in the pocket.
Let me ask you a question, Coach. Did you watch the Green Bay game? Did you see Devin White in that group, what they did, JPP in that group, what they did, and Shaq Barrett, what they did to Aaron Rodgers, the MVP, in that offensive line and the pressure that came to bear against him? Did you watch the New Orleans game? Which I know you did. I'm just saying. They've been doing this to everybody. So I don't want to use the offensive line as the major excuse as to why the defense was getting at Patrick Mahomes in the offense.
Oh, I'm not giving it. I'm not one of these guys that comes out after a loss, and I thought KC was going to win to say, hey, here are my excuses on why you lost. You lost a damn game. You lost the game, right? There's nothing you can do. But to sit up here and say that, hey, their O-line wasn't decimated and that didn't play a major factor into all this, I think we would be remiss, right?
The defensive line was going to get after them regardless. They could have had 5 All-Pros across the board on the offensive line. The fact of the matter is those dudes came to play, and they came reckless. I mean, and that is just what it is. And because of that, that blueprint is out there now. Teams in the offseason will study that game plan, and they will try to run that game plan back to Kansas City when they see them in 2021.
I would just say 2 things real quick, and one thing would be simple, and that is if you're a Chiefs fan, you can convince yourself, as everything that Key said, everything's a little bit up in the air right now, what's going on with Andy Reid, his family, Bieniemy's a free agent. He will obviously likely return as the offensive coordinator, but if you're a Chiefs fan, you can easily convince yourself, to Jay's point, my offensive line is decimated, and there's reputable reporting.
I'm sure James is doing that right now.
James took today off, by the way. Right. Stressful day for him.
Member of the crew who's a big Chiefs fan, it's tough to recover. And there's reputable reporting that Patrick Mahomes is going to need surgery on his toe. If you're a Chiefs fan and you tell me those 2 things, I would say, okay, last thing, 4 scenarios. Which was the most remote? Chiefs win tight, Bucs win tight. Chiefs win blowout, Bucs win blowout. In my opinion, the latter.
The latter, for sure,
right?
Zubin.
And that's why the NFL is awesome. Because the odds are that would never happen. And that's exactly what happened.
And I know we got to go, but think about it. The Rams just got Matthew Stafford. The Rams just picked up Matthew Stafford to try to make a run at the Super Bowl.
In their stadium?
In their stadium.
Sound familiar?
So, Just go figure who the champions will be next year.
We'll see. And it's unpredictable. That's why the NFL is great. I can predict today on Greeny. I can predict on Greeny. Alex Smith, the ESPN Radio, the all-time GOAT of team sports, Adamir.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hope you guys are safe and well.
You too, brother.
And I have a little bit of a different perspective. So I grew up in Bosnia in the 90s, and it was a wartime. So very little exposure to the outside world. And I knew who Michael Jordan was and barely had any electricity, would listen on the radio. And he brought the game global where, it wasn't before him. So to me, there's no debate the impact that he's had.
Global.
Yeah,
Well, here's what I would say, Key. I agree with him, but basketball is more of an international sport. Football is an American sport, and I know that Tom Brady is the best quarterback to ever have done it. But at the end of the day, just basketball, the footprint is so much more expansive. I mean, it's funny, I know we always talk about basketball. When we start looking international, though, like it's basketball is just, it's aggressive. It's all over the world. And we have international players that get recognition all over the planet.
I would say that this year, Jay, you well know this, but this year NBA rosters, there were 107 players from foreign countries to accentuate what Jay said about being an international game. And let's be honest, I'm being a little facetious here, but I really don't think I am. 2 countries in the world play American football. The United States and Canada. That's about it, right? But basketball is a global game as evidenced by those 107 players. Sean is in Connecticut. You're on ESPN Radio. Sean, GOAT, team sports, all-timer.
Thank you. All right. Well, first I want to shout out to Keith because I've been a Bucs fan since I was about 6 years old, and I've been suffering in New England for a while. So this is a pretty good day for me. Anyway, Jay Will said that MJ I think was the GOAT because he was undefeated, but he wasn't really undefeated, was he? He spent the first 10 years losing. So you want to say he's 6 for 6? He's really 6 for 18 years that he played. And Tom Brady's been to the championship 10 out of the 20 years he's been a starter. So I think that he loses that. You can't say that he's undefeated when he spent 10 years losing to start. That's all I got.
That's a distinction with the difference. That's like saying Montana was a loser, except for those 4 times he got to the Super Bowl. I respect what you're saying, but you know what I mean? It's a little bit of an odd argument.
But that's why I don't even really get into these arguments, conversations with people when they start trying to identify who the greatest of all time in their sport is. I'm like, dude, Montana was undefeated. We know what Brady has done. He's been to 10 Super Bowls and have won 7. Elway's won his fair share. Michael Jordan, LeBron James. I'm just really happy to be able to see him play and enjoy it. I'm not the one to ask that question because I ain't going to never say, oh, he's the greatest of all time. That's not who I am.
Right. You're not here to diminish greatness. No. You're here to accentuate greatness.
Exactly.
From Michael Jordan to Michael Tannenbaum. Can I call him that? Very formal. Mike Tannenbaum, the ESPN.
What a transition.
The ESPN front office insider joins us this morning on the Goodyear Hotline, brought to you by Goodyear, helping you discover the road ahead. Goodyear, more driven. Mike, let's just start with the poll question for you because you're kind of cross-pollination. You're an agent. You've represented basketball players. You made your living in football. Who's the GOAT of all team sports?
Oh, it's Tom Brady, and then draw a line. Jordan's probably second for me. But what he did last night, when you consider no offseason program, and they just start no preseason games, little bumpy, they go 7-5 and go undefeated, and you take 60, 70 people when you factor in players, coaches, staff, and you win a championship, that is really remarkable. He now has 7 rings more than any other franchise.
Mike, where does this one for Tom rank among his championships in your eyes?
Key, I'm sure when he gets time to reflect sometime in the coming weeks or months, this has to be up there, maybe with his first one when they beat the Rams in the Superdome. I would just say that this is such a remarkable accomplishment when you think guys like Antonio Brown he had never played with before. Gronk was out of football, and they cobbled this together, and he set the standard so high. And, we talk about things like force multiplier or aura association, and I know we'll get into it down the road with players like Deshaun Watson, but that's why certain players are so transformative. It's not only what he did on the field, but it was off the field. He made that organization a winner, something they haven't done, Key, since you had been there, going back 15, 20 years. So it's really remarkable. And again, I think his impact on the organization is way beyond the stat sheet.
So this didn't come from me. It came from our producer, Evan. I'm going to ask this, though. He wants to know how jealous you are that Tom Brady was able to put together a Super Bowl championship as a general manager. He's calling Tom Brady a general manager. I'm not calling him a GM. In one season, more so, he says, than you did your whole career. Didn't come from me. It came from our producer.
It's cold-blooded, Mike. It's cold-blooded.
Totally fair. Look, I knocked on the door a couple times, as you guys well know. Tom Brady was unbelievable, again, off the field because players want to play with him. And you talk about moving the story forward. They have a number of free agents, guys like Shaq Barrett, Gronk, AB, Fournette. But when you practice and play on natural grass, which players love, you have perfect weather like you do in Tampa. You have no state income taxes, and you have a chance to win because Tom Brady's your quarterback. Yeah, he's a great GM, and that's why they're going to be right in the mix next year as well. And it's a perfect combination. And as long as they can protect them, and that's what we saw last night, guys, the difference in the game was up front. Tampa was able to protect Tom Brady, and Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, for the first time as a Chief, didn't score because Tampa Bay consistently got pressure with 4 players.
Wait, Mike, are you forecasting that Tampa Bay is going to win it again next year? Is that your prediction right now?
J-Well, I don't know if they're going to win it, but they will be right in the conversation. When you look at the NFC, obviously the Saints will take a step back, moving on from Drew Brees. Who knows who comes out of the NFC East? Green Bay will be there, but beyond Green Bay, I think it's very realistic for Tampa to get back. Unlike Kansas City, where Patrick Mahomes' cap number starts going up significantly, Tom Brady's cap number is more flat. So I think they have a chance to keep more players. And again, going back to Tom Brady being the general manager, players will take a little bit less money because of 2 things. 1, they're paying less in taxes, so it's more money in their pocket. And 2, they feel like they have a real chance to win.
Wow, Tom Brady back in the Super Bowl again at 44 years old. Let's go to the Chiefs side for a second, Mike. So much is going on. Andy Reid's son having that car accident. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes having a toe injury, the O-line decimated. Where do the Chiefs go from here?
Yeah, first of all, our thoughts are with the victims of that unbelievable tragedy that I think we'll find out a lot more in the coming days. They have some really big decisions. They have a couple of really good players that are up. Sammy Watkins, who's a great receiver when he's healthy. Daniel Sorensen, who's a little bit of an underrated starting safety for me. He's a free agent. And Patrick Mahomes' cap number goes from $5 million to $24 million. So we know over time their nucleus is going to shrink. Travis Kelce will be there. Tyreek Hill will be there. But other players will have to graduate. And I think the one thing we saw last night, if Patrick Mahomes has any kryptonite whatsoever, is the pass rush. And he looked last night like a young, inexperienced player where he was under duress. He was never comfortable in the pocket. He bailed out quite a bit. And that offensive line has to come back healthy. And that's where it all starts. And Coach Reid knows that. And I'm sure that'll be the focus of their offseason.
Mike, now that the season is officially over and we're starting to get ready for the 2021 offseason, if you were the general manager of the New York Jets right now, what is the asking price for Sam Darnold if you wanted to move him?
It's a second-round pick because he's a player that's started the league key. He has not shown greatness, and it's very similar to what we saw with Josh Rosen leaving Arizona and being traded to the Dolphins. Top 10 pick, new coach comes in. In that case, it was Cliff Kingsbury. This case, it's Robert Saleh. A second-round pick, I think, would be a fair price.
Just a 2? That's it? Wow.
Well, Key,
what about Carson Wentz? Go ahead.
I was going to say, Carson wants to be maybe a little bit more because he's played at a higher level. But I think a second-round pick based on his body of work. And if I'm Joe Douglas, part of that conversation, though, is I'm going to take whatever I can get for Sam Darnold and add it to my 4 first-round picks. I'm calling Nick Caserio, the Houston Texan guys. I am not taking no for an answer because if I can get Deshaun Watson, I am not acquiring a great quarterback. I am acquiring the next Derek Jeter. I'm going to own New York for the next 10, 15 years with maybe Kevin Durant and what's going on with the Nets. And I am changing my franchise. So Sam Darnold's been good. Deshaun Watson is great. And he's a great face of your franchise, both on and off the field.
It's been an unexpected offseason already. We're just hours into it. We already saw Jared Goff, Matt Stafford. As our colleague Adam Schefter, who's going to join us a little bit later this morning, said it could be an unprecedented movement at the quarterback carousel. And Mike will be here to take us through the entire offseason. Promises to be an offseason unlike any other after a season unlike any other. Mike, appreciate the perspective this morning.
Just remember, Mike, that wasn't me.
It was our producers, Mike.
It was our producers.
Noted. Duly noted.
In Mike's defense, he did get to 2 straight AFC Championship games.
Oh, don't try to come on.
Now you're going to try to come on.
Yeah. No, Evan. No, you can't do that.
Never got over the hump.
Oh, jeez.
We're not here to hang conference championship banners. We're here to hang Super Bowl champions.
I seen somebody recently hung like a championship banner, but it was like a divisional banner.
That is so weak. A divisional banner.
No, I know what it was.
Hey,
that wasn't it. It was Tom Brady on his social media went after the Colts or something. They hung like a divisional banner or something.
They did.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh God."
Yes, it was an old school one.
Year.
Yep.
Yeah, the Deflategate year.
Hang it out years. Speaking of deflating, all right, Adam Schefter is going to join us this morning. Says Carson Wentz and the Eagles are as good as done. It's just a matter of when. A deflating end to an unbelievable start. I want to talk about this here for the next few minutes because obviously Goff and Stafford has happened. We're waiting for Deshaun, although it's important to note that the Texans this weekend, all reporting, saying at this point, don't even call. He's not available. That's another story for another day, and we'll certainly get to it. I want you guys to listen to this. I dug this out the other day, and this is why you never know, as Key says in the NFL, okay? Always remember this. The Eagles surrendered 5 picks. 5 picks for the right to move up to the 2 spot to select either Jared Goff or Carson Wentz.
Give it to me because this is interesting.
Now listen to this. This is Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Howie Roseman, right after, fellas, the 5 picks were surrendered. They gave up a haul to get to 2, right? And I want you to listen to this. I'm not going to kill Howie. I'm going to qualify this, but this is very important. Quote, this is 2016. Remember 2016 draft. When we went and researched and saw what the quarterback classes are going to look like going forward next year, 2 years out, that's a daunting proposition. Okay, let's stop there. The next year, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes were drafted, right? So you think you know, but you never know. So Howie said we moved up because I was looking over the horizon at the next year and the following year, and I just didn't see anything. Now, I can
stop you right there.
Go ahead.
That's bad general managing to start with. You're looking 2 years down the line. You cannot predict 2 years down the line what some college kid is going to do. Just think about Joe Burrow. 2 years ago, prior to him being drafted as number 1 overall pick, where did you have him?
Day 2.
So there you go.
To number 1
even
overall.
if you do, Key, you don't say that.
No, you can't.
Like, even if you think that, you don't say that because you don't know.
But you can't. You're right, Jay, but there's no way in hell possible some guy could tell you what a player who's a freshman is going to look like as a junior. There's no way of knowing.
And fellas, let me just quickly qualify, because like I said, there's another part to this statement, but the first part was said. Like, we got to trade up because I'm looking over the horizon and I don't see much. He did follow up. Now, quote, now, a lot of things changed.
Really?
There's no question. What we see now is probably not what we see a year from now or 2 years from now, but it's also going to look back at the history of the last 15 years. What he basically said is if you have the opportunity to go up and grab somebody, history says you better go do it because you don't know the next time you'll be in a position because you don't want to be drafting again in the top 10. But it's just a cautionary tale, Key, that once Carson Wentz is traded, that the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in the 2015 and 2016 draft will all have traded teams. Think about it, right? Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, the latter of whom could be on his 3rd team very soon. But think about that. Number 1, number 2 overall picks, all QBs, and sooner or later, soon as Wentz gets moved, they'll all be gone.
When you miss on a quarterback or you miss on anybody high in the draft like that, it could potentially set your franchise back for years to come. The Buccaneers, they got as much as they could out of Jameis Winston. They couldn't get any more. Mm-hmm. But what they were able to do is go get a guy who was available in Tom Brady who knew how to win. Mm-hmm. So it didn't necessarily set their franchise back. 2 years from now, they're going to have to find another quarterback to replace because it certainly wouldn't be Blaine Gabbert, but they're going to have to find somebody to replace Tom Brady. If Jameis Winston was there, they'd have him for another 10 years at quarterback if he was doing what they needed him to do. You look at the Houston Texans moving away from Deshaun Watson potentially could set the franchise back for so many years to come because you anticipate he was going to be there for the next 12 years. That's why you gave him the big money. Now you've got to go and find a guy out there that you think you can have underneath that center for the next 12 years. It's hard to do.
It just feels like Howie Roseman is disoriented, very much like the weekend last night in that whole maze scene. I had no idea what was going on. I was spinning around, and that's what's happening to Howie Roseman right now, Key. That's how I feel.
And fellas, think about this. How many years ago? Look, when they won the Super Bowl like 3 years ago, whatever it was, 3 full seasons ago. I mean, think about this. They were the envy of the league. Howie Roseman was picking players
Philly special.
left and right.
Yep.
Philly special. We can make it work with Wentz. We can make it work with Foles. But we got to give Wentz job back because he earned it. And Foles just quietly stayed as the backup. It was harmonious, Jay. And now they're the most dysfunctional team in the NFL.
I mean, this whole thing is like recycling. Now they're talking about trading with the Bears and getting Nick Foles back. I mean, this is like the Knicks getting Derrick Rose back. What is going on?
Didn't happen.
What is going on?
But this goes to my point about the Kansas City Chiefs. Or chefs in that commercial, either one. You look at what happened to Philadelphia. Not that Kansas City is in the same place as terms of dysfunctional organizations as Philadelphia, but Philadelphia hadn't gotten back. Philadelphia quarterback is on the move. Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere, but it's just hard to keep that consistency the way the New England Patriots did it for years. And everybody points to New England and Tom Brady and think that that is just like something that you can just go to a vending machine and dial up what you want and it's going to fall out. Hey, I'm the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm on a Super Bowl. Boom. That doesn't work like that.
They're the outlier. If it was so easy, why hasn't even a second team sniffed it, right? A second team. There's 32 of them.
It's very difficult. So many things have to align. I thought we were going to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row, back to back to back. I figured we getting ready to run. We're going to walk away from this thing with 3 rings.
Bucs didn't get back till yesterday.
Bucs didn't get back till yesterday.
Think about that.
Guys, I know we're erring on the side of how difficult it is, but at the same time, they have been to back-to-back Super Bowls, right? I mean, there were people saying last year, well, it's like, hey, look, it's difficult for them to get back. They have the talent to do so if they're able to keep things intact.
And the Buffalo Bills went to 4 straight. Just saying.
You can never underestimate the impact of what a loss could do to an organization, mentally, physically, the psyche, it's all there. No matter what, whether you win or lose, you never come back as that same team. So it's unreasonable to expect about the other side of the football, and we'll fill you in on the other side of this 21 seconds.
Going into the game, what was your number one goal on the defensive side to shut Mahomes down, shut that high-powered offensive down? What was your guys' number one goal going into that game?
Shut Pat Mahomes down. I think you got the wrong guy. I had nothing to do with that. That was Todd. That was the
nervous laughter.
The nervous laugh is everything, Zubin.
So, Jay, we're putting 2 and 2
that
together.
Ain't no nervous laugh, man. We all look the same. Man, that's what that was.
Translation, let me be careful here.
We all look the same.
He was talking to Byron Leftwich. I think he thought he was talking to Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles.
They look so different.
They look way different, man. But, when you ain't paying attention doing your job, you make those type of mistakes. I get it. Bruce Arians, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, both black. I get it.
And
because there's so many. That's the first class problem, though, Key. First class problem.
It's all good.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
What is the young man's name who asked the question? Oh boy. I just wanted to know what's his name. I mean, hey man, it happens.
So let's talk about it.
I've done it to you, Zubin.
Yeah, indeed.
Right?
I've done it to Zubin. Stop.
What's our guy? Kevin
Nagandi.
Kevin Nagandi. Hey, Kevin Nagandi, how you doing?
Me and L. Duncan every night at 6.
Yeah, you and L. Duncan really do a great job there, Kevin.
We'll see it tonight, 6 Eastern, right after PTI with L. Duncan on ESPN.
Nisroff. Key, you and I look very much alike. Yeah. We're the same, Hey.
But on a serious...
It happens.
but on a serious note, right? Bowles and Leftwich, it really bolsters their individual cases. We'll see it this time a year from now if they have head coaching opportunities. You think the Bucs will come back just as strong. There's no reason to believe they won't. But also, Bruce Arians elevated these two guys. I heard during the broadcast last night, that Todd Bowles played for Bruce
at Temple
when Bruce was there decades ago. And Jim Nantz also said during the broadcast, and this has been out there, but it's worth accentuating, fellas, that Bruce Arians said he may not have taken the job if he wasn't able to bring Leftwich with him. Remember when he was the OC in Pittsburgh, Leftwich
I heard
was there.
that.
Okay, okay. Now obviously you're laughing here
because I laughed. I'm sitting at home with a friend, and the moment that the Jim Nantz said that, all we did was look at each other and said, "Yeah, right," because it's just funny to hear. I'm not taking this job unless Byron Leftwich comes with me. Okay,
you wouldn't take it at face value?
I take it. It's just funny.
Okay.
It's funny because I've never known a coach not to take a job if they can't get another assistant to come with them. That is just funny to hear, because I certainly wouldn't see a head coach wanting an opportunity, and when Byron Leftwich is available, to not come when he was your offensive coordinator before. That's all. It's just funny. Jay, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just listening to you.
So what do you think here, Jay? I mean, it is one of those situations where both of these guys, I mean, everybody, it's a rising tide lifts all boats, but, now Bruce has got that elusive ring, and now the question is it enough to get to Canton? If we spent all of last week saying Andy's won, got him in, why would that not apply to Bruce Arians?
I think it does. It's weird, but I think it does because of everything that BA has done, from the minority situation of hiring practices to doing things different than everybody else. His winning percentage as a head coach, his winning percentage as an interim head coach. He won a Super Bowl, gone to Super Bowls as an assistant coach, just everything. And then he goes and he takes down one of the most prolific quarterbacks that we've seen in the modern era. And it's just, and he's got some more winning to do. So I think it certainly, that conversation will certainly start to happen.
And Jay, remember, 68 is not even the oldest coach in the NFL. It's not like he's leading the brigade. He's the oldest coach to maybe win a Super Bowl, which is true, but he's not the oldest coach even in the NFL today.
And it seems like he also has a runway that's continuing to extend, right? Like, I mean, we just had Mike Tannenbaum on, and he predicted them to potentially be right back there again next year. So I will say, when you start looking at the entire body of work for the way they came on late in this season, dealing with everything that's happened this season, I think sometimes we all get lost in our own little box about how difficult it is to do what they were able to do this year with no preseason, with the moving landscape, the moving targets of everything happening with COVID. How they were able to accomplish that, I think, speaks volumes about how he was as a leader.
Well, they are a young football team. I mean, they're not an old football team other than like Tom Brady and Gronk. O.J. Howard, the tight end, was hurt early in the year. He'll be coming back healthy. You talk about all of the talent that Jason Light, the general manager, has assembled either through free agency or through the draft, and they're going to still be able to go out there. Here's the thing that would be interesting. Do they go out there and try to figure out how to grab one of those quarterbacks of the future? One of those guys that's hovering around, because Tom Brady, 2-3 more years from now, that a young guy can learn behind Tom Brady, and really, because they're sitting around with Blaine Gabbert right now, but at some point, with all of this young talent, with the Leonard Fournettes and the Ronald Joneses and Chris Godwins and Scotty Millers and the defensive side of the ball with all that talent, do you now look to figure out how to get one of these young quarterbacks in the next 12 to 24 months to replace Tom Brady whenever he decides to walk away? Is that the time to do it now?
Well, it seems like, it would be the right time to – you always plan ahead, Key, right? You're always planning ahead. Think about – for anybody, it's like spending your last couple of years with LeBron James or with Michael Jordan. The tutelage that Tom Brady would be able to give somebody would be priceless.
Well, you could – what has to happen, or the reason I say that is they're sitting at 32. They're going to be at the bottom of the deck. Do I now say you could have this pick and this pick? Or if I'm Tampa Bay, do I say to the New York Jets, I'll take that off your hand for the 32nd pick, or I'll take that off your hand for a second round pick. You don't have to worry about it because I'm going to sit him behind terrific Tom. We got a great defense. All I need him to do is do this. So if I'm Sam Darnold, that might be the way to go.
I think most organizations look at this in different ways, but you can see who's worked for and how instructive it can be. And these are winning organizations that have taken divergent paths. The New Orleans Saints knew this day was coming for Drew Brees. It's probably going to come here officially in the next week or two. So they got Jameis Winston ready, and they paid Taysom Hill. And if something crazy were to happen in the Watson sweepstakes, you never know, but they have two solid choices. Now take a look at another solid organization that's won 6 Super Bowls like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just said, we got Big Ben, but do they really believe in Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges? I mean, these are two teams that had two aging quarterbacks. Know you always need to go next. The Saints seem to be in far better position
Well, they
to
went
deal
and
with
signed
it.
Dwayne Haskins too now.
Right. Now, that's a futures deal, but it's tough to be able to say we're going to ride and really believe in Haskins at this point. That's a low-risk opportunity, I think.
Well,
you
yeah,
have
but
to
they
take.
know he has some talent.
First
And
round pick.
They need to just see him in the offseason to really figure out if it's a long-term solution, because Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph is not long-term solution.
No, and if Ben Roethlisberger doesn't take the contract they ask for, he might not even be the short-term solution. Again, another quarterback in this wild carousel we'll continue to talk about. Speaking of quarterbacks, our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky, next on just how Tom Brady did it again and where he stands on the GOAT in all of team sports. Want to hear from you on that, too. That's the question this morning. 888-ESPN. 88. I want to talk to a guy this morning that played the position because it's a unique insight. If we're talking about great wideouts like Calvin Johnson, go to the Hall, I want to talk about Key. If we're talking about great point guards, I want to talk about Jay. But you played this position that Tom Brady has had a master class, PhD, whatever you want to call it. After what you saw last night, having played the position for 12 years, what do you think about this guy that's done it night in and night out for 20 plus?
Z, I said if Tom Brady won this game, it was going to be the greatest accomplishment for a guy who has the list of the greatest accomplishments ever in NFL history. And this puts it at the top. It's his greatest accomplishment. I mean, we've labeled throughout this season of what no offseason, inability to learn the offense with teammates, no preseason, truncated training camp meant. I think the greatest thing that I saw from Tom Brady throughout this season that was felt a little bit different and then certainly showed up last night was we've labeled him the greatest of a lot of different things. I think he's the greatest believer of all time. For me, like, we watched guys have tremendous impact last night in many ways as cast-offs, as guys that nobody else in the league really wanted. I mean, Leonard Fournette was a top 5 pick that was cut from his football team. Leonard Fournette had the most catches he's ever had in a football game last night. Leonard Fournette was an incredibly impactful football player, physicality-wise. He went to that team because of Tom. AB has the touchdown catch. He also won on a couple one-on-one routes and certainly brought some stuff onto himself, but is there because of Tom, because Tom believed in him. You know, and Gronk went back because Tom believed that he would have an impact. And just watching those guys have their performance, it just kept making me think, like, man, those guys are playing and playing so well because Tom constantly believed in them, constantly gave them second, third, fourth, fifth plus chances. And that's kind of the legacy that I see for him having in Tampa Bay. But what he accomplished this year is one of the greatest feats, if not the greatest feat, that I've seen when it comes to football.
No question about that, Dan. Tom has done a lot for the Buccaneers, but the guy that has won this Super Bowl, in my opinion, and gotten them in this position since that Kansas City game in the regular season is defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. Some of the things that he was able to do to Patrick Mahomes and the disguising coverage. I told the guys earlier, I said, I'm going to ask Dan this question. Have you ever seen a double cat blitz? I've only seen single cats, never a double cat. That is a confusion that he brought to bear for Patrick Mahomes yesterday.
Yeah, Key, I have, but you know I'm a tape psychopath, so I've seen like everything. But no, it's very abnormal. Not only, you know, when they brought that blitz that you're talking about, Key, they lined 5 guys up at like 13 yards, 5 DBs, and then spun to single high coverage while they did it. And so you're exactly right. Todd Bowles Todd Bowles, we never say this. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy were completely outclassed. I've never said those words. I've never even thought that phrase. But they were last night by Todd Bowles. And the greatest thing that Todd Bowles did was he didn't overthink, yet he didn't get lazy. You know, the overthinking thing would have been, I got to bring all these crazy exotic pressures. He brought a couple, 2 or 3. But at the end of the day, he realized, I got 4, and my 4 are better than their 5 by far. But then he wasn't lazy to say, just line up and play, guys. You just line up and play and win the rep. You know, there was a couple snaps that he took Vita Vea, their 350-pound nose tackle, and put him at defensive end and allowed him to rush to some of those new tackles and brought JPP on the inside. So I love the fact that, you know, while he was good enough to understand that they were more talented, he didn't just line up and play and say, hey guys, you just got to go win, do your job. He gave them the opportunity to be really successful. And as good as Todd Bowles was, Key, I do think that we're not talking enough about Byron Leftwich. You know, people are going to look back at this season and go, Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, his job was easy. He had Tom Brady. Complete opposite. Complete opposite. Because if they didn't win it, guess who would have been on television Monday morning saying Byron Leftwich didn't do a good enough job? I would have been. You know, the amount of pressure that he was under to go get it done this year was huge, and he was remarkable last night.
Hey, Dad, you said you would be on TV Monday morning. I was about to say, well, you wasn't that guy in the press conference that got Todd Bowles confused with Byron Leftwich. I hope.
I don't want to laugh. I don't want to laugh. But come on, man.
I gotta make you laugh.
So
hey, a win is
so
I know,
bad.
right? A win is a win. Did the referees get in the way last night at all in that game?
Yeah, in the first 10 minutes or first 15 minutes, for sure. They stunk. The referees stunk, and they were making it about themselves. But if they played that game 500 times that way, the Bucs would win 500. This was just a mauling. This is the worst game Kansas City's played in 3 years. They picked obviously a poor time to do it, but the referees were poor. But I mean, that did not have an actual determining factor in who was going to win this football game. Tampa Bay was just significantly better.
Dio, does this win put Bruce Arians into the Hall of Fame?
Probably not. You know, I mean, probably not. You know, he's had a really good run of some stretches coaching-wise, especially in Indy. He was impactful with Ben and with Todd Haley as well as Pittsburgh. But I don't think it puts him in the Hall of Fame. But it's certain. You know what would put him in the Hall of Fame, though, Jay? I think in the Hall of Fame of a lot of people's eyes, and Dominique Foxworth, Ryan Clark made this point to me this morning. You know, this is a copycat league. And, you know, we point to, you know, everyone wanted Sean McVay, and I love Sean, but people that were attached to Sean, or everyone wanted people that were attached to Bill Belichick. You know, there's a great amount of diversity on Bruce's staff when it comes to black coaches and also female coaches. And Ryan Clark brought up this great point as he's going to be really interested to watch if people sit back and attach themselves to the people that are attached to Bruce. And those people are black coaches and female coaches. And it'll be really interesting if that happens and that really changes the way that people look at stuff, then that would put him in the Hall of Fame, you know, as far as impactful coaches that have come through our league.
And Dio, how about on the other side of the ball? I mean, so much is going on. Andy Reid's son having an accident. You know, issues with the O-line. Patrick Mahomes supposedly going to have surgery on that toe. If that's the case, you know, do you think this team has a chance to be back there next year, or what do you give their chances to be?
To be back there? Of course. They just played a bad game. Yeah, this team will be either the favorite or the second favorite to go win the Super Bowl next year because they got so many pieces back. The old offensive line issues just caught up to them. You know, that's the reality. They just caught up to them to play in that game against that defense, you know, with how well they played and have so many missing pieces up front. Jay, like, the reality of football is this. No one loves the creativity and the fun and all that stuff more than me. If you can own the line of scrimmage, you can do whatever. That's what happened. So, yeah, Kansas City will be right back there. Patrick is still the best player in football. I know a lot of people are saying Patrick Mahomes didn't play well. Go watch the game. He was unbelievable. He was running for his life. Paul Hembekitis, the brilliant mind at Get Up, sent me this stat. Patrick Mahomes ran for 500 yards last night before he threw the football. I mean, that's unbelievable.
What?
So,
wow.
Yeah. So, just a bad night for Kansas City. They'll be back.
Hembo has all the great stats, and all the great stats last night belong to the Tampa Bay Bucs. They have won the Super Bowl. He's got some company now. He's got to share him, Dan, right? They had that championship all by themselves.
What do you mean, Kevin Gandhi? What are you talking about?
Quick, let me think of a white quarterback compared to Dan, too. There's a million of them. I guess, no. Dan, thank you so much for being here this morning. Look forward to the only thing better than the...
All morning long, Dio.
If you run into Gandhi in Philly, I know your wife's from Philly, so if you run into Kevin or me, just be careful. In the 700 level,
good luck with Keyshawn.
Thank you very much.
Fellas. He's on one. Later, boys.
Yeah, he is.
Yep, there's Keyshawn sitting at his home in Westport, Connecticut.
Right? Just get it confused. Hey!
We kid because we care, as somebody once famously said here. Real quick, I wanted to ask this to Dio, but I'll ask this to you guys. Look, we had this discussion last week, going to 45, playing beyond 45, the George Blanda comparisons. He looked the surprised he's ever looked.
He looked the same to me. There's nothing looked different from Tom. He looked the same. His delivery, his launching point, everything looked the same to me. Nothing changed for me.
I'm not even gonna lie. After the game was over, I'm like, here we go. Like the Tom Brady, it's gonna go into a different stratosphere. It's gonna keep building.
But see, what I was trying to tell you last week.
I know.
What I was trying to say to you, Jay, you was like, well, he should just ride off into the sunset. He didn't look like a ride off into the sunset guy.
I know.
He wasn't. He first of all, he was never going to run away from anybody. So that was never going to happen. He delivered the football. He was always, when he got pressure, he was going to duck and protect himself. Ever since his leg injury, his ACL years ago, that's who he is. But when he delivered the rock, it was Tom. I mean, like,
Key, the
you
real
got to
question
just let
is,
it go. You can't fight it.
do you think he'll come back next year looking younger than what he looked this year?
He'll look the same, pretty much. I mean, he look, as long as he doesn't stop and he continues to keep working, he'll be fine, which he's going to do. He'll be fine. Now, I meant to jump in with Dan, and Dan was talking about Kansas City will be right back there next year. I'm like, man, I get it. Patrick Mahomes is the guy. I understand it. But we done said that about a whole lot of great quarterbacks, whether they win the Super Bowl or lose the Super Bowl, that they'll be back the next year. They'll be back. It's like, I don't know. You just don't know.
And as many people have said, think about the AFC is the conference of the future. Obviously the conference of the present is the NFC as long as Tom Brady is there.
Think about it. The Baltimore Ravens just overhauled their offensive staff to bring in pass game coordinators and T. Martin from Tennessee, who's coached a ton of receivers.
That's a big one over the weekend.
That was big. They brought in Keith Williams as a pass game specialist to help the passing game with the receivers and the running backs.